We talk about something we've had a huge response from you about when we reported on the so-called Leasehold Scandal. This was a couple of weeks ago. Today, there might be good news for some of those affected.
Yeah, it's something Ben has been investigating. He's got the details for us now, and it was a huge reaction from people a couple of weeks ago.
People who really feel they were missold, and it might sound on paper like a small difference between getting the leasehold on your property or the freehold, but there is a huge difference, and it could cost people thousands of pounds. Thanks so much. Thank you for all your messages. Loads of you got in touch about this, and it relates to the thousands of homeowners who say, as we said, feel they were missold the leasehold on their house rather than the freehold. And there is a big difference. A leasehold is often more common with flats, means that you often have to pay service fees or get the freeholder's permission before making any changes to the house, maybe add an extension or a conservatory or something. That's meant that many people have had real difficulty when it comes to selling the house later down the line. Well, Jo Derbyshire is one of the people who got in touch with us.
I bought my house in December 2010. And I knew when I bought it from the salesperson in the office that it was leasehold. We asked how much it would be to buy the freehold, and she said it would be about £5,000 and we could buy it anytime we liked. 11 months after we bought the house, the freehold was sold on, and we didn't think anything of it because we just got a letter saying that we would pay the ground rent to somebody else. It wasn't really until the summer of 2016 that we realised the cost of buying the freehold had gone up from the £5,000 that we were verbally told by the salesperson, to almost 10 times that.
Yeah, such a familiar story there from Jo that's affected a lot of you too. Well, today the Law Commission, which advises the government on legal issues, is proposing changes to make it easier and cheaper for people like Jo to get a hands on the freehold. So will it actually make any difference? Well, with me is Beth Rudolf, a director at the Conveyancing Association. She's with me now. Morning to you,
Morning.
Beth. How common is what we heard there from Jo?
Sadly, it's becoming more common. So we're seeing that whereas there's about 25% of houses that are registered as leasehold, sorry, not houses, but all properties registered as leasehold, actually the number being transacted is increasing, and this is because more and more developers have been creating leaseholds. Now, as you said in your piece before, that makes sense if you've got a flat and a shared amenity, but what we're hearing is that there's more and more leasehold houses.
Is this just because the developers say, look, this is a great way of making a bit of money, we don't need to give the freehold, we'll charge ground rent, and then they can sell that on to other people, and this is where it gets fiendishly complicated, isn't it? You might buy your house from one company, but then find out that somebody else actually owns a freehold.
Yeah, so get this, they're selling the property for full value, and then they're sticking on a doubling ground rent clause, which means that in economic terms they're increasing at about 7% per year. That's the return. So that's an asset class right in itself. So they're creating this economic value, which they're then selling on to other offshore companies who then become the freeholder and start charging.
This is an absolute scandal, isn't it?
It's shocking. And what's worse is that people are not told about this before they buy their property. And there is consumer protection that says that they should be, but this isn't being enforced. And the reason it wasn't being enforced is because National Trading Standards didn't have a sufficient budget.
So who's responsible? Is it, all of us, the home buyers, who are not paying enough attention to the paperwork, or is it the developers who are trying to pull a fast one in some cases?
No, it's absolutely not the home buyers. So when you go to buy a mobile phone, you've got more consumer protection and more information up front than you do when you go to put an offer in on a house. When you go to view a house, what you should be doing is asking them for their CPR disclosure document, outlining all of the things that would materially affect your decision-making process. Now, if everybody starts doing that, they're all going to have to start producing it. And that information should tell you all of this before you decide how much you're going to offer for that property.
And so let's talk about these proposed changes today. What difference will they make?
Well, it's a consultation, so first off, they're not going to make any difference unless all of those leaseholders out there get on the Law Commission's website and give their thoughts on it. We want to make sure that it's not just the developers who have a financial interest in this responding. So just go on. The Law Commission love plain English, so don't worry about some of the jargon on there. So what difference will it make? Well, hopefully they'll bring in a reduction in the actual amount being paid for the premiums and create a fair process. So it's much easier to buy your property, buy the freehold of your property, and that you don't have to wait 2 years to do it.
Beth, it is fascinating. We are going to talk about this again, I'm sure. Time's up for now, but this is a story that we'll come back to because so many of you have got in touch with us about this. So keep your messages coming in if you've been affected, and we'll keep you up to date on all of those changes right here on Breakfast.